welcome to Immigration Conference 2022, hosted by Mansouri Immigration Firm in collaboration with Siava Ideas Accelerated.
A message from the Mayor. On behalf of my colleagues on Vancouver City Council and the citizens of Vancouver, I am pleased to welcome the participants of the first annual 2022 Immigration Conference. As Mayor, I am proud that the City of Vancouver is home to a diverse and multicultural population. Vancouver is a destination city for so many new immigrants, many of whom contribute so vibrantly to the culture and economics of the city. There are many educational, cultural, and recreational activities to complement the restaurants, shopping, and entertainment opportunities in our multicultural city. I am confident all those attending the conference will gain a renewed sense of achievement in past accomplishments and an optimistic view of the future. Best wishes for a successful symposium. Sincerely, Mayor Kennedy Stewart. Thank you very much for attending.
To open the conference formally, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Carrie Lynn Barkley, representing Mansouri Immigration Firm.
All right, thank you for the introduction, and good morning to everyone on the day of the Great Rogers outage. So, fortunately, I had my notes already open. A little bit of background about Mansouri Immigration Firm. The firm initially started in 2014 in Ottawa and subsequently moved the main office to Vancouver, BC in 2016. We are a boutique immigration firm offering a wide variety of immigration services. We have dealt with extremely complex cases, including different inadmissibility cases, as well as various appeals. So from all of the branches at the Immigration Refugee Board to procedural fairness complications at the federal court, and as is appropriate for the subject matter this morning, we also handle significant business class applications. Our practitioners are all licensed by the Law Society of Ontario and the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants. Our firm is built on an ethical and professional practice. We make client relationships a priority while upholding the strict rules of our professions and following immigration legislation and regulations. We offer a service that includes absolute transparency and honesty through the immigration process. Today, we are proud to say that more than 80% of our clients come from referrals. Over the years, we've maintained our commitment to community support and paid special attention to pro bono cases, as well as the education of students and newly licensed practitioners, together with positive involvement with the regulatory bodies. We offer a wide range of business-related immigration services, and we will be covering a few of those pathways in today's presentation. Now, before I start talking about those, I'm going to talk a little bit about the background for Canadian immigration. So, immigrants contribute to our economy, and the strength of Canada's economy is measured in part by the number of people working. So that's known as our labor force, and our labor force pays taxes and funds our public services, like our famous healthcare system. Thanks to immigration, Canada's labor force continues to grow by a small amount every year. If it weren't for immigration, employers would have trouble finding qualified workers. Canadians are living longer and having fewer children. So more people are retiring, there are fewer students in our schools. As a result, the pool of Canadian-born existing and potential workers is limited in Canada. So immigrants contribute to the economy not only by filling gaps in the labor force and paying taxes, but also by spending money on goods, housing, and transportation. Employers are already having trouble finding Canadian-born workers to fill the jobs. There are work shortages all over the country. More than 6 in 10 immigrants have been selected for their positive economic impact on our economy. Immigrant entrepreneurs specifically create jobs and attract investment to Canada, and they drive innovation. Most of our immigrants have excellent science, technology, engineering, and math skills, and they make up about half of all STEM degree holders in Canada. These skills are extremely important in our knowledge economy. For immigrants to find work here, it is important to make sure their education, training, and experience meet Canadian job standards. The most recent report from the Minister for Immigration makes a number of comments about immigration over the past few years during these unprecedented times. Canada's permanent and temporary residents supported Canada's resilience during the pandemic, particularly through their work in long-term care, healthcare, the food sector, and other frontline services. Temporary foreign workers contributed significantly to our agriculture and crop production sectors over the course of the pandemic. The future of Canada lies with its immigration programs. Just to give you a sense, immigrants make up a significant and increasing share of our population. 4 in 10 people that currently reside in Canada are either immigrants or children of immigrants. Immigration has become the primary source of population growth in Canada in recent decades, driving more than 80% of our population growth. Without immigration, our population will decline in about 10 years, and it will not recover without immigration. Immigration also contributes to our labor force. Just over 1/4 of our working age population, so those aged 24 to 54, are immigrants. Immigration will be essential to the growth of the working age population. Our working age population is also projected to decrease over the next 20 years, and without immigration, it will not increase again. Temporary and permanent residents are able to meet specific labor market needs. In some industrial sectors, relatively high proportions of the workforce are immigrants and temporary residents. Permanent residents who become entrepreneurs create jobs, attracting investment to Canada, driving innovation. Demographic changes in Canada during the pandemic highlighted the importance of immigration. Over the past 5 years, immigration has accounted for 3/4 of our total population growth here. That figure dropped to 58% in 2020 because of border closures and other impacts. So as of January 2021, Canada's population was over 38 million, but it had only increased by 0.1% from the previous quarter. This is the lowest annual growth in numbers since 1945, and it is the lowest percentage of growth since 1916, both of which followed wars. So we are now at a wartime level of population growth in Canada, which is not a good thing. We also hit a record high number of deaths in Canada during the pandemic. We lost 300,000 people. Birth rates remained at 1.47, which is lower than the replacement rate required. So what do we then do about this? The COVID-19 pandemic has clearly highlighted the importance of immigration to Canada. The economic immigration class is the largest source of permanent resident admissions to Canada, approximately 58%. In 2020, the number of individuals admitted to Canada under the economic class was over 100,000. This was a decrease of 46% from 2019. So these levels have to come back up, which speaks to the importance of the business immigration programs. So one of the key elements of our, One of the key elements of this is the labor market impact assessment. Labor market impact assessments are essential when a foreign national is applying for a work permit for the purposes of managing their Canadian business. An applicant has to demonstrate that their presence in Canada as the owner of their own venture will not have a negative impact on the local labor market. Proper advertising of job opportunities, ethical recruitment practices, and adherence to regulatory requirements are essential to obtaining the positive LMIA. The applicant has to show their presence will result in the creation of new job opportunities for Canadians. I think if we go backwards, we get to the IMP. The International Mobility Program covers some situations for which an applicant doesn't need to obtain a labor market impact assessment. The government won't expect the Canadian employer to go through the recruiting process. Different trade agreements and workforce treaties with various countries, as well as humanitarian causes, are among these classes. So there are 2 very popular ones that cover a situation where a new business wants to offer a managerial or specialty position to a manager. The first is the C11 work permit category. This category is designed for self-employed persons and entrepreneurs who want to come here to run their own business. They must hold ownership and control of the business to qualify. Many of these applicants also have parallel applications for permanent residency, and we'll get to those in a minute. Circumstances create what is called a dual intent situation from an immigration perspective. So they're coming as a temporary resident, but they intend to eventually apply for permanent residence. That is fine. That is acceptable under our immigration law. What's key is that they show a willingness to do whatever their permit suggests. So if it's over, they have to return home, and if they obtain permanent residence, they don't. So, the C11 process, they look at whether or not the person coming on a temporary basis to operate their own business is going to generate economic, social, or cultural benefits or opportunities for Canadians or permanent residents. Benefits to Canadian clients as well can also be considered in the case, especially if there's a unique service being offered. So factors in significant benefit: is the work going to create a viable business that will benefit Canadian or permanent resident workers or provide economic stimulus? Does the applicant have a particular background or skills that will improve the viability of the business? Is there a business plan that shows key steps in the process? Have they taken steps to activate their business plan? Indicators of a significant benefit will include job creation, also development in regional or remote settings, or expansion of export markets for Canadian products and services. Advancement of Canadian industry, like technological development, is also really important. The degree of ownership, the issuance of work permits for entrepreneurs are going to be considered when the applicant has a controlling interest in the business. Next is the C12 process. C12 is a situation where the proposed business is an affiliate or subsidiary of a foreign business that already exists, and they want to send one of their managers here or skilled staff to temporarily work in the Canadian business. This is where the intra-company transfer is a good idea. The applicant has to currently be employed or work in a parent subsidiary branch or affiliate of the enterprise that initially employs them. They have to be transferring to one that has a qualifying relationship. So they have to actually have relationships to each other, the foreign company and the Canadian company. The individual should be transferring to an executive, senior managerial, or specialized knowledge role. So that's an important key as well for the C12 process. Next, we have entrepreneurship and permanent residence. The provincial nominee programs, which is PNP for short. Permanent residency through entrepreneurship, the federal government has assigned the due diligence and screening process to the provinces and territories themselves. So each province and territory has their own unique screening process, and they decide who they will be admitting to their province based on their local needs. So once the provincial nominee program is satisfied with the applicant and their business plan, they support the applicant to obtain a temporary work permit, which enables them to come to Canada and start their business with their families. The program is for workers who have skills, education, and work experience to contribute to the economy in a specific province or territory. They have to want to live in that province and become permanent residents of Canada. Now, each province has its own streams, so their own immigration programs that target certain groups. In a program stream, provinces and territories may target students, business people, skilled or semi-skilled workers, depending on the needs of that province. How an individual applies depends on the application process in that province. And this is where it's really key to have professional immigration advice before you undertake applying to one of these programs. So, using British Columbia's PNP programs as an example. BC has a critical need for healthcare workers and early childhood educators. So they have priority access to those jobs when people apply. You get a better chance at assessment under the eligibility criteria. In addition to healthcare, BC is also looking for technology workers. So they are looking for the ability to recruit and retain international talent in tech occupations when they don't have local workers. Over the time since its inception in 2017, BC's PNP has supported 6,000 tech workers to be nominated for permanent residence here. So the key features are that you need to qualify under each province's program in order to apply. So there's a two-stage. You apply in the province and then you apply federally to enter Canada. So the startup visa is the next one. This is a very popular program and it has a very, very good reputation because of its success. So the goal of this program is to invite people who have an innovative business that is going to contribute to our economy. and they can apply for immigration to Canada after getting support from one designated entity. A designated entity, and you'll hear from a few of them today, are in charge of verifying funds and supporting the business through the process. Designated entities include venture capitalists, angel investors, and business incubators. Several of the minister's annual reports to Canadian Parliament, which are made every year, show that many highly successful businesses have been among these startups. So these new businesses are sort of on the cutting edge of what keeps Canada on a global stage. Now, to qualify, you have to have a qualifying business. So the applicants have to own 10% or more of the voting rights attached to all shares, and I'll talk about shares in a minute. At the time the individual receives their permanent residence, they have to be providing active and ongoing management of this business. That has to be the point of them immigrating. An essential part of the operations of the business has to happen in Canada. The business must be incorporated in Canada, not necessarily federally, but incorporated in Canada. A letter of support is required from one of these designated entities, and they'll tell you more themselves about how one goes about that process. The process to pitch your idea is different for each organization, and each organization has its own individual requirements. After that, applicants have to meet the language requirements, so the ability to work in English or French or both will help your business succeed in Canada. Language tests have to be obtained from an approved agency, and they will evaluate speaking, reading, listening, and writing. And the language requirements are essential. And money. You have to have enough money to settle. The government is not giving financial support to new businesses. It barely gives financial support to Canadians and permanent residents, so that's important. There has to be proof of funds. The individual has to have the money to support themselves. It can't be borrowed from another person, so the applicant has to have the money. The amount that's needed depends on the size of the family, and these amounts are updated every year. All right, so the law, which is my area. Different business structures in Canada. There are 3 business structures common to most provinces and territories, but only one of them is really significant to business immigration, so I'm going to speak very briefly about the other 2. The first and most common is the sole proprietorship, which is a one-owner business. It requires the business owner to be in Canada to set up shop. The owner and the business are one and the same. Sole proprietorship is the easiest to create and the easiest to sell, but it's also the most risky because you and the business are one and the same. Business gets sued, you get sued, you lose your personal assets. The next common form is partnership, where 2 or more people set up a business together with a view to a profit. They don't actually have to make a profit, they just have to have tried to. That's the point of a partnership. The downside here, again, is unlimited liability. So limited liability partnerships are only available in the professions, and limited partners can easily lose their limited status by taking too much of a role in the management of a partnership. It is an inherently risky thing to do. We call most partnerships firms. They're simply a contractual arrangement by which the parties set out their obligations to each other. The downside is the courts do not care what your arrangement is. They care who you hurt. So you can be responsible for the activities of your fellow partners. They're responsible for anything that happens in the business. Joint ventures are also another type of partnership. It's a contractual arrangement. The purpose of it is it's for a limited purpose. So like ordinary partnerships, a joint venture can be an individual, a corporation, or a partnership. Joint ventures are limited time, so they're usually large construction projects or special events are done jointly by different groups. It's a way of pooling resources amongst organizations so that one individual organization is not footing the whole bill. Now, incorporation, this is the one that is most common for business structures in Canada. Corporations are separate legal entities from shareholders. Corporations are run by people called directors. Directors are chosen by shareholders. Shareholders are technically the owners of the corporation, though not really. It's an ownership interest in the corporation. The corporation is a legal person. Obviously, it doesn't have a brain, so people have to do things for it, but it is considered a person legally, which is a little confusing, but that's just how we do it. We inherited this from England. So Directors and shareholders can be the same people in a small business corporation, and in fact, they often are. It gives owners and the shareholders and directors, if they're the same people, they don't have to worry about conflicts amongst themselves. Corporations are quite expensive to start compared to the other types of business arrangement, but are very flexible in terms of ownership structure. A corporation in BC and Ontario BC or Ontario, doesn't require any percentage of the directors to be resident Canadians. So nobody has to be here when the corporation is set up. It is possible to set it up before you arrive. The important thing to keep in mind is there are ongoing filing requirements. It is really, really important to get advice from a Canadian lawyer before you set up a corporation, because it is easy to disincorporate yourself just by not doing filings on time. So again, legal advice is pretty key. So having said all of this, what happens if your application is rejected? Well, we have a couple options. There are things called appeals and there are things called judicial review. Appeals are available for decisions by a tribunal in the immigration context. So the Immigration Refugee Board, there are 2 appeal boards within the Immigration Refugee Board that allow appeals, and some of those can go onward to the federal court. The federal court procedure is called a judicial review. Judicial review is different than an appeal. An appeal is an attempt to alter a previous decision. Judicial review is to assess the fairness of the process. That's the purpose of judicial review. So in most immigration decisions, and all of the decisions made by visa officers, appeals are not permitted. So judicial review is the only route you can take. The judicial review is the court taking a look at the decision of the officer and determining if the officer followed a fair procedure, which means they reviewed the whole submission, they didn't ignore parts of the submission that contradicted their reasoning, or if there was a credibility issue, the applicant was allowed to provide updated submissions. This doesn't mean that every decision you disagree with can be judicially reviewed. It is only where there's an issue with the decision. We prefer to preview the original application before we file if Mansouri firm did actually do the application. We don't want clients to have unrealistic expectations about their chances. It's not a quick process. It is months before the court makes a decision if there is no settlement offer from Minister's Counsel. And lately there hasn't been a lot of those quickly. Why is the original application important? Well, it has to be as strong as possible. We are restricted to the materials filed on the original application. No new material can be filed on an application for judicial review. So a strong initial application is key to a positive result because that is the evidence I'm looking at to determine if the officer has made an error. You have no protection if you don't use a professional. So your best result is to have an application prepared by a registered Canadian immigration consultant or Canadian lawyer. These applications are too important to try and do them yourself or to try and undertake doing them with someone who is not licensed. So if you use the services of a ghost consultant, and they're called ghost consultants because they don't have a license here, although they may appear to know what they're doing, you have the right to ask for proof of licensure before you obtain services from someone. So it's best, you don't send money until you know for sure that someone is licensed to offer those services in Canada. We have 2 stages to a judicial review application. First is the leave stage. We submit the documents to the court and a judge determines whether or not there's a fairly arguable case. So, sorry, skip ahead here. All right. If the judge believes there is a fairly arguable case, they require immigration to provide all of the documents on file, and then they will schedule a hearing. If the judge does not believe there's a fairly arguable case, they dismiss the application and there is no right of appeal. So again, it is really, really key that the initial application be very, very good in order to ground the judicial review application. The case law is clear that the court will not reweigh the evidence and it will not interfere with an officer's decision unless it is clear they did not consider evidence that they should have. So, what do we do if it's taking too long? Well, there's another application you can make to the federal court when immigration has not made a decision in a reasonable time. The one caveat I have to offer you is that no decisions are made in a reasonable amount of time right now. Immigration has ground to a halt for some reason, so they're being very, very difficult. But the reality is Canadian law requires a decision be made when an application is done. So if you've made the application, you are entitled to a decision. There are also 2 stages for this application. The lawyer in charge of the file has to contact immigration to see what the holdup is. If there's no response, or if the response is nonsense, the lawyer then advises that resort will be had to the federal court if a decision is not made. An attempt by an applicant to force a response from immigration doesn't count as one of these inquiries, so it is important that a lawyer be retained to make these, to make the litigation threat as such as it is. I prefer to be clear with clients that if the initial contacts do not get a response, we are going to court. I'm not going to make an idle threat. If I've threatened immigration with federal court, then we go to federal court. There's no 2 ways about that. So all of this today, and I think that's the end of my slides, should emphasize the importance of a good advisor to help you navigate this whole system. And when you, along with what you hear for the rest of the day, there's no substitute for quality legal advice when you're engaging in an immigration process.
CIAVA Ideas Accelerated Organization's mission is to foster entrepreneurship and facilitate localized investment opportunities. CIAVA's team has extensive hands-on experience across PMP and federal business plan immigration programs, providing business plan research and writing services to immigration lawyers and consultants. I would like to ask Mr. Jason Ruberstein to come over here. As I say, it's easier for me to say it in German.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the introduction. So as she mentioned, my name is Jason Rubenstein. I am an RCIC, and I'm with CIAVA Ideas Accelerated. So we are a business incubator specializing in planning, researching, and developing businesses for immigration streams. Our expertise in preparing applications, and the business plan submissions for applications for IMP, LMIA owner-operator, PNP entrepreneur, and the SUV program is based in years earned experience. As you will see, we develop business ideas for immigration around people. By leveraging entrepreneurs' strengths and identifying areas in need of development, we foster growth and entrepreneurial success by providing support through our extensive professional network and slew of resources that new Canadian entrepreneurs would otherwise have difficulty accessing. So today we're going to talk about business concept and business plan writing, feasibility studies, financial projection planning, business consulting, and startup steps. A critical aspect of all Canadian business entrepreneur applications is the initial business idea. This is the seed from which business concepts and business plan submissions are generated. It is these documents that will allow the applicant to come to Canada and be successful in their newly established business. An often overlooked key to success in entrepreneur applications is matching the applicant's experience and education to a gap or need in the Canadian marketplace. This is our strength. By focusing on developing business around people, we differentiate ourselves from other service providers in the market. So just to speak more about business idea development, not sure what happened to that slide. So we analyze each business through the lens of the Canadian marketplace coupled with a targeted immigration stream. We can provide pointed suggestions on how to maximize points allocation for that stream. These analytics go hand in hand with our market-driven data suggestions to improve the appeal of the business for the Canadian market. Following a successful business concept, a conceptual and practical business plan will be prepared to demonstrate the business roadmap. Our business plan writing services emphasize the market demands and are realistic while remaining accurate and relevant to market conditions. When writing effective business plans, input from the entrepreneur is vital. That is why we offer unlimited pre-submission revisions on all of our business concepts and plans. Feasibility studies. Businesses must thoroughly assess the potential risks before embarking on a new project. A feasibility study will help an organization understand the risks and enable them to make calculated decisions. Feasibility studies can determine the viability of the company's plans in terms of competition, potential revenue, and operational impacts. Our feasibility studies are compiled using scientific evidence from specific target markets, industry sectors, and business strategies. Our professional team at Siava will support the business by providing a practical financial plan through considering SMART goals. The best way to handle business challenges is to seek expert and professional advice. We aim to provide all companies with essential and auxiliary assistance on a constant or on-demand basis. We are confident that we will provide valuable insights and guidance to help your company thrive as much as possible. We will work hands-on with you to improve your business operations as required. So Siava has developed a unique program for entrepreneurs and innovators seeking to start or expand their business in Canada. The program is designed to develop strategies that will maximize the chances of success for foreign entrepreneurs seeking to immigrate to Canada under a PNP or the Startup Visa nomination stream, or Startup Visa immigration stream. So it starts with idea development, market validation, product description, pitch deck and business plan as per the DI's requirements, financial planning, finally a presentation to the designated incubator, feedback loop, final presentation, and letter of support. So we have the idea development loop again, letter of support idea, further development, market validation, product description, pitch deck and business plan, and then financial planning. After letter of support, so we do continue to provide service after letter support to maximize the chance of business success. This includes progress check meetings, patent and trademark consultations, website and social networking development, consultation networking, and mentorship. Now I'd like to invite Hamed to take some questions as well. Thank you.
All the participants, all the presenters, and people who are joining us virtually through different platforms, social media. Sorry about the internet outage. It's not in our hands, so we can't do anything about it. We take some questions if we have questions online.
Thank you for the presentation and going over the steps. It would be great if you can quickly give us an example of a case that what happened, what kind of business, and the process, so it make it easy to understand.
About the startup. Okay, so we can cover what we do as in Siava, and we can cover what an ideal startup program can do here. As Jason mentioned, it needs to be innovative. So if for example you have an idea, and you think that is very innovative, and you can compete on a national scale, because everything happens here, we have to eventually take it to the States. So we need a bigger market, so it needs to be like on a scale, on a level that is feasible to compete on that level of competition and market. It needs to be, it needs to technically have what we can say, technology, something new, something beside it, like a traditional business. Like if you have like a garage and creating things, it can be something like that, something on a very low level. You can scale it in the future, but it should be scalable. So you have to have something in mind, do your market research, start your business plan writing, start with your business concept, try to find a designated organization, get a letter of support, and after you have everything in place, you can start actually doing your business. We have many clients who have their own business back in home or even here in Canada, and before even they think about getting to the startup program, they have their business and platform and everything ready. And after they receive the letter of support, they just start to expand it and do it the way that the business startup program requires. what we do is before we even start with writing the business plan, we do a very thoroughly market research. Actually, the idea is to get out and talk to people, talk to the customers, and get their opinion, because whatever we have in mind, it's not like 100% accurate, so we have to talk to people. Because of COVID, for the past 2 years, we couldn't do that, so we try to do everything online, talk to people, do the survey, everything through like media, social media, or just internet. Then we come up with the business concept. We check the financial aspect, do the financial feasibility study, come up with the business plan. So when we have the business plan, we go to designated organizations, we try to get a lot of support, and after we receive a lot of support, we start with our services for the part for the after letter of support, so post LOS. You have your letter of support, you apply to immigration, you're trying to come here and get a work permit and work on your venture, but it's like a big deal, so you can't do everything by yourself. You need consultation. Of course, the designated organizations are there to help you. If you have angel investors, mostly they have some interest in your business, so they will help you for sure. If you have a venture capital, a little. If you have a business incubator, they do mostly more than those two. But we are here as well, so we help you with your networking. If you find any like a specific profession, if you need like help to develop your website, if you help to apply for a grant or for any type of, I would say, financial assistantship, if you're trying to, after even getting a lot of support, if you're trying to find some investors, sell your shares, anything that can help you expand your business, and hopefully you will be successful. And in the very near future, you can sell your business and exit and go to the next one.
Thank you. Do you have an idea how long the process takes usually? Is it months or years?
Before we receive a letter of support, because letter of support plays a very important, like a key role in this whole process. Usually it takes at least like 3 to 4 months. And after that you apply, technically you're very busy to apply to immigration. You need a work permit, you need a permanent residency, so you get your file together. People just tend to focus on that part and just let go of the business venture for at least a month or a couple of weeks. And after that, you have to start your business. It doesn't matter if you received your work permit or not, you have to start it. It depends on the country which you're applying from for a work permit. If you're in Canada right now, it takes approximately 4 months. And after a work permit, because you apply for permanent residency simultaneously, right now it takes 31 months. So after 31 months, the immigration officer for sure will ask for the progress that you have. So you need to have a progress report ready. That is one of the services that we provide, because throughout the 31 months or even more, we have our regular meetings. So we check everything, we give you feedbacks, we help you to prepare that progress report. So by the time that the immigration officer opens your file, you have your progress report ready.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any online question or other question?
Yeah, there are a few questions, but I believe that you have already answered them all. But after we receive the LOS, do we have to do market validation again?
Oh, yeah. This is something that people ask often. The thing is, as I say, it takes at least 5-6 months before you can come here and start your business. So many of the aspects that you cover in your market validation and market research at the beginning may change. We have had several examples of the businesses that we try to run, and by the time that everything was ready, someone else started that bigger and better. Because you never know, other people can do it in their basement, in their garage, and you never understand what stage they're at. So it's very important. After you receive a letter of support, you have to do the market research again. It's a very ongoing process. All the time, it's a very ever evolving. So you have to change, you have to do the survey again, you have to do the research again, you have to talk to your customers. If you see that one aspect of your business doesn't work out, so you have to change it. You have to adapt yourself with the market, the future market, let's say.
Yeah, the key is to develop a successful business. So if that requires pivoting the idea into a different sector or your related product, whatever the business is, you have to be willing to undertake that.
I don't have a question, it's more of a comment. I think I can speak on behalf of all the incubators here and accelerators to the applicants. Do not try to write your own business plans. Personally, I've received gray hairs from reviewing business plans that are not written by professionals. It's just not worth it. You don't want to take that risk with your application. And typically, innovators are generally broadly focused. So when it comes to writing a business plan, they really don't want to get into all those details, which is critical when you, as a reader, you're trying to understand what is this idea about. So please do not try to write your own business plans.
That's right, that's right. Yeah, we have had that, like actually a couple of times we had problems with people. Usually when they're startup applicants, they are very specialized in specific like sector. They're like very professional in tech and medicine, and they have their own specialty. But when it comes to business plan, because let's face it, you have like, for startup visa program, you have 4 different areas that you need to cover. You need to be expert in your own business. So for example, if it's like an AI app, you need to be professional in AI. You need to know how the process works. So how to get your permanent residency through that profession that you have. You need to do a great market research, and you need to come up with a professional business plan. So these are all different. So if you know AI, if you're like a doctor of medicine, and you have an idea, you don't know how to sell it. That's a tricky part. That's something else. So yeah, as Noah mentioned, we need to cover all that. Yeah.
Would you be able to further elaborate on pivoting business? My understanding is that when you get a letter of support, you get it for a specific business idea with a specific projections. So, and I do understand your comment that it's ever evolving. However, if you do have a letter of support for a very specific business, so how do you pivot after when you arrive, even if you know there are other competitors out there?
This pivoting comes especially to selling and to your market, your future market. So some examples, we had some businesses that trying to sell something that's very, very unique and specific. And after they did the market research, after they received the LOS, they understood that that doesn't make sense and that doesn't make them money. So they pivoted and tried to make it a subscription based. So everything changed, like the market research changed, the financial projection changed, because, for example, instead of selling each unit for $500, they tried to make $10 per month. And in the long run, it helped them a lot, and they're more successful right now.
So pivoting in terms of market strategy rather than the business idea itself.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, and then my second question would be, so we do understand that when basically the prospective business owners come here to develop their business, they would face many hurdles, but we do also understand that incubators are there to help them through. So I want to understand, where does Siava's service basically comes in? So what is there that the incubators won't do that you would expect step in to cover and do?
What they wouldn't do that we will do. So technically, we're not just focused on startup. We have entrepreneur clients. We have Canadian clients that they're thinking about running a business, and that's totally separate from immigration. So they have nothing to do with immigration. They just want help with their business. So we already have that system in place. And for our entrepreneur clients, their system, their path is totally different. So we have all those in place. So when we help a client to get a lot of support, we're not gonna just leave them high and dry. We know that business incubators are there, but we can't be sure that the clients do their due diligence and do whatever the business incubator asks them. And they cannot force the client to do something. We are worried about the result of their application. So we are there to help them even if they can't help themselves. Yeah.
No,
It's
thank
okay.
you so much for clarifying. My question was pertaining mostly to the second part. So business plan is the first step for you to basically present and get the letter of support, but once they got it, they get the work visa, they are here, and I wanted to know which areas would that, and then he perfectly clarified for me that basically they will make sure that the clients do what are
exactly.
told by the incubators, and basically you're there to
That's
get
a
them to do
great
their job.
point
Okay.
that
Yeah.
you're pointing out. There is also this, I don't want to call it cultural aspect, but there is also this, the way people go about following up with their incubator, how punctual some people are. There might be applicants that are very specifically knowledgeable about what they're doing, about their business, they're passionate enough, but they're not punctual enough, or they don't know how to follow up with their incubator, or sometimes they don't even, they have trouble understanding what exactly is required of them, and you can only expect so much from an incubator. They have their own system in place. And we are here sort of like a tutor that helps the student understand or have a better interaction with their professor or with the university or whatnot.
Sorry, I think it's not a technical question, but it's a very, and I believe it will come up later in the process. Will it be a package that you offer in terms of, all these services, or there are basically pieces that the client could purchase and, add on to?
Both.
Okay.
Both. We're pretty flexible when it comes to the services that we offer to clients, especially for this matter after LOS. Some clients ask for our services on like an ongoing monthly basis. Sometimes they just have needs, specific needs. For instance, they have trouble doing their secondary market validation. They need our help in terms of like reaching out to people, talking to industry players, or there can be times where they need help going about finding investors, better investors, or like more broader investors. So anything for that matter that comes up, we're here to help. We don't force the clients to go on a monthly or on like an ongoing service package, but if this is something they want, we're happy to